Hello, my name is David Meyer. Before I get started, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm the president and co-founder of AdoptAPet.com, the world's largest non-profit homeless pet adoption website that helps over 10,000 animal shelters across the United States and Canada find homes for their pets. I also co-led the pet rescue efforts in New Orleans after Katrina, leading over 1,000 volunteers. We were able to save about 17,000 starving pets and return many of them to their original owners. And lastly, I am a very serious international competitor and coach in martial arts. I am the current world champion, Pan American Games champion, and US Open champion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at the black belt level. Now, I know that may sound a little funny in comparison with some of the other charitable and animal work that I do, but for me it all makes sense. I view myself as a protector, as someone who works hard to be strong and to champion the underdog both literally and figuratively. And I suspect that you all feel very much the same way. Now, you may not be as physical as I am, or you may not have made it your profession or your career to be working in the nonprofit world or to go save the world, but clearly you're here because you care and you're interested in being a part of the solution for some of the world's most challenging problems. Those would be problems like global warming, pollution, world hunger, challenges with human health. So what I want to ask you is if I could suggest to you a way that you could alter something that you're currently doing, possibly every day, that would reduce global warming, that would reduce pollution, that could save on our natural resources, and even improve your own health, would you be interested in that? But let me tell you, there's a big catch. Now, although in the end you'd see it as a huge life improvement, in the beginning it might feel like a serious sacrifice. Now, we all saw Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth. And of course the truth was that there were things that we're doing as a society and maybe even as individuals that are contributing to global warming, and what's inconvenient about it is we may have to change some of the ways in which we live. But there was one truth that's so inconvenient Al Gore didn't even want to touch it, even though he acknowledges it's true. Now let me start by telling you a quick little story. This is me, David as a baby. You can see that even as a young child I was already getting started on what has now become my lifelong hairstyle. This is my mom, Dina, a wonderful woman, and she was a school teacher and did her best to raise me. And this is my father. Now, he didn't always wear that on his head, but he did when he was feeling good. I was a good kid. I didn't get into trouble. My favorite foods were salami sandwiches and melted cheese sandwiches. And I loved playing with my dog, Tippy. I was taught to be a good person, to have good moral values, to make the right decisions, and to do good in the world. When I got into college, I started to learn some things that I found disturbing. I heard about the Amazon rainforest and how large sections of it were being burned down in order to create space for cattle ranching. I started to learn about how there was drug-resistant bacteria because of the overuse of antibiotics, and how the #1 use of antibiotics in our country is in factory farms for farm animals being raised for food. I started to also learn that the #1 source of water pollution in the United States, of rivers and streams, was runoff from factory farms, from hog farms and chicken farms. I found this to be somewhat disturbing because it occurred to me, what if my salami sandwiches and melted cheeses were contributing to these problems? Could it be that my parents had actually raised someone who was inadvertently causing harm in the world just by my food choices? If that were true, would it even be possible for me to actually start eating differently, even on just some days of the week? Now, as an animal lover, even at that time, I always had this nagging feeling that eating meat didn't make sense for me, but I also had some strongly held beliefs. I felt that eating meat every day is natural, and it's our instinct, and that eating meat every day is healthy, and without it, I'll die. Then, and here's where things really started to get interesting for me, I started to learn a few things. Now, in nature, some animals eat other animals, but many don't. So, what kind of animal are we? Now, when I looked at our teeth, I noticed that our teeth are designed for crushing and grinding, and much more like the teeth of, say, a horse, as compared to the teeth of a lion, which are sharp canines and are just there for grabbing and pulling. Similarly, our jaw moves left and right and allows us to grind and chew, similar to a horse, in a way that no carnivore's jaw allows them to do, in the case of a lion, for example. I also looked at the length of our intestines. Our intestines are long, about 10 to 12 times the length of our body, which is similar to herbivores like horses, and very dissimilar to carnivores, whose intestines tend to be about 3 times the length of their body, getting meat out much faster from their system. I also noticed that we sweat through our skin, like herbivores, like for example a horse, whereas carnivores pant to cool themselves off or sweat through their paws. Well, the truth is, we're not horses, we're not herbivores, we're not carnivores. Seems to me we're omnivores. Actually, we're apes. Well, what do apes eat? Turns out about 67% of their diet is fruit, 17% is leaves, seeds, and stems, and 3% is termites and caterpillars. Oh my. And then I started to think about our instinct. Now, when I used to take my dog Tippy for a walk, if we came upon some unfortunate animal that had been run over in the road, she'd immediately run over there, sniff, and usually try to pick it up in her mouth. If we saw a squirrel running up a tree, she would chase the squirrel and again try to catch that squirrel. Now, she found that to be very appetizing, but the truth is, I didn't look at animals in those situations and find them appetizing. My instinct led me towards wanting to eat a watermelon, or seeing a tangerine on a tree, and peeling that tangerine and feeling the spray on my tongue. So if it was the case that my instinct wasn't necessarily to eat meat unless it was cut and prepared and cooked, so it would even be not dangerous for me to eat, I was finding myself getting fairly confused. I started hearing all these doctors talking about the need to reduce cholesterol and prevent heart disease and saying we need to eat less fatty meats and more vegetables. So in 1985, I began a personal experiment. That experiment was to stop eating chicken, meat, fish, and just see how I felt. And the truth is, I felt stronger and more alive than ever. That's when a thought occurred to me. As a rule of conduct, if I'm faced with two choices, and one causes harm and the other doesn't cause harm, all other things being equal, I'll make the choice that doesn't cause harm. Well, I couldn't deny that if I sat down to eat dinner and had a choice of a perfectly good-tasting veggie burrito and a equally good-tasting burrito with meat in it, all things being equal, my health would be about the same if I ate either one. I should choose the one without the meat, because that one didn't cause as much harm. Putting all this together in my mind, it occurred to me why it was that I was eating meat in my life. It wasn't necessarily because I thought it was healthy, or it wasn't necessarily because I thought I had to. It was because it tastes good. I was just being honest. Meat tastes good and I enjoyed it. And that's fine. But I had to reconcile that with the fact that animal agriculture, including the methane coming from cows themselves, is one of the main causes of greenhouse gases. That pig and chicken farms are the top source of pollution in rivers and streams in the U.S. That it takes 16 pounds of vegetable matter to feed to cows to grow 1 pound of meat, and that doesn't even include the cost in energy in terms of resources of refrigeration and transportation and preparation and processing of the meat. That inconvenient truth that Al Gore didn't want to raise was that if we want to each help stop global warming, reduce toxic runoff into our streams and waterways, save our natural resources, and just live healthier, then we should start eating more great-tasting plant-based meals and be eating less animal products. It doesn't need to be all or nothing, but even a small change, if each of us make it, would help. We here are the thought leaders. We're the people at the cutting edge of where technology meets social change. The choices we make matter. Let's not be silent about something just because it hits too close to home or it's too inconvenient. I haven't eaten meat in 26 years, and I feel stronger and healthier than ever. And I eat lots of great-tasting food. You'll decide what works for you, but I invite you as often as you can to share in the health and the energy and the joy I feel as a protector of the environment and all its inhabitants when I sit down to eat. We'll all be better for it. Thank you.